All right, I'm back. Solo episode. I thought, this podcast started off with me talking solo to the camera for 10 or so minutes. Then we switched to that longer format with the four of us. I thought I'd come back to doing solo podcasts, and it's for a few reasons. And I'm going to share those reasons with you. Part of the reason is to create content, but a big part of the reason is to talk about things that are a little bit more relevant to just me. On the podcast, we tend to discuss coaching and lifting. I'm going to talk more about, my journey as a coach, as a business owner, stuff that's a little bit more relevant to me that might help people who are on the same journey that I've taken in terms of transitioning from out of the industry into the industry as a coach, as a gym owner, and then as a business person, I guess you could say. But this episode itself has been largely inspired by a great friend of mine, Sam Williams. Sam Williams actually edits the other podcast that I have, Peak Speak, with John Sheridan. If you haven't heard of that or haven't listened to that, go check it out. We've been doing that for years and years. But Sam is an extremely talented animator, videographer, photographer. And he made an interesting story the other day. And his story was basically talking about how creators these days, as in creatives, people who are interested in photography, videography, are really influenced by chasing views on social media. And as such, they tend to sacrifice creativity for the algorithm beast. They're looking to be seen. And so instantly, they've changed the way that they would approach something to satisfy something else. And listening to him talk about that kind of resonated with me because it's interesting how people will conduct themselves as business owners, as coaches, trying to reach lifters on Instagram and other platforms like that. And so basically what I wanted to talk about today, and I don't know how long I'm going to go for, I'm going to try and keep it to about 10 minutes, is using social media as a tool, as a business tool, and sort of where it fits in and some tips around conducting yourself on social media on your journey as a coach and as a business owner. You can look at me, you can go to my social media, you can go to the ZeroW social media, and you might think, well, you don't have heaps of followers. What I believe I've done really well with social media, especially in the early days before it was like everyone's an Instagram influencers, like I'm talking back in Facebook group kind of days, is leverage social media to gain trust of an audience and then have an audience that's willing to listen. And then in the context of business, if someone's willing to listen, they're willing to engage with your services and potentially purchase something. Because there is a big difference between eyes on you and generating income from social media. It's easy to get lots of people looking at you, following you, listening to you, but there's a chasm between that and actually monetizing that. Because you think of what generates interest. Look at regular media. Look at the news. How often do you hear just general feel-good stories? No, they want things that are polarizing. They want things that strike emotion. And things that strike emotion and are polarizing are generally quite negative. And so think of the people that you engage with or follow on social media, or people that you pay attention to and watch, that are just train wrecks. You're not going to buy something from them. You just watch them because you like enjoying the show, watching the train wreck in front of you. I'm sure you can think of accounts. And I mean, this kind of sums up the heart of my message here when it comes to social media as a coach. Always approach it in terms of how you curate your own social media. Approach it how you engage with social media as a consumer. So what I mean by that is when you're scrolling through Instagram, liking things, are you immediately commenting on things? Are you then going to the page and purchasing something? Probably not with everyone that you follow. And so there's a few messages that you can take from that. Think of the things that really capture your attention to then click through to that page and potentially the link in their bio or whatever. What have they done to capture your attention? How can you take that in principle and apply it to your own content that you're posting? That's one way you could look at it. Another way you look at it, and I speak to a lot of coaches when I'm mentoring that get quite upset and disheartened because they're like, oh, I've started putting so much effort into social media. I'm posting more, but people aren't liking it. People aren't sharing it. I don't seem to be getting a lot of engagement on my posts, and so on and so forth. Do you like and engage with everything that you see on your own social media? No, probably not. That doesn't mean you're not looking at it. That doesn't mean you're not reading it. Like, it takes a lot for you to feel compelled to share, to like, to comment. And even when you do feel that way, you may not even take those steps to actually do it for whatever reason. So don't be disheartened if your engagement isn't gigantic, because at the end of the day, you have to come back to the question of, why did you post that in the first place? Like, what is the point of your social media? And this is where a lot of people miss the mark. They think that their social media is going to be the money-making machine. It's not. Your social media is proof of concept. If people catch a wind of you as a coach and who you are, or your gym and what they do, the next step is to sort of look at the social media and see if you're legitimate. And so understanding that it's not about trying to get the shares, get the likes, get the story posts. It's more so just showing who you are and what you do, with the hope that that's going to translate into business. And some of my posts that are on the lower performing ends of things, that are directed towards something like recently we did a free webinar, they don't get ridiculously high engagement, like crazy shares and crazy likes and comments. But the actual turnover, the carryover through to something that can be then monetized is huge. And that's been gained by building the trust of my audience. And so when you're looking at your own social media, always come back to, why am I actually doing this? This sort of opens the door to much wider conversations that I sort of hope to touch on in future episodes around what marketing actually is, who you're actually talking to. But I want to translate this into something, a great quote that I heard the other day on a podcast, which was, don't try to win arguments, try to solve problems. And where a lot of coaches go wrong with their social media posting is that they're posting from a position of trying to prove someone or something wrong. They're trying to say that they are right and they are wrong. Like their enemy is wrong, the person posting is right. It's just not how it works. And that's not going to be a great organic strategy to try and get people to buy your stuff. Because essentially what you're doing is you're trying to win an argument that doesn't actually satisfy or help the person who you want to sell to, doesn't solve their problem. So like let's use a practical example of RPE versus percentage. You write this long drawn out, possibly strawman argument about why RPE training is better than percentages, or why percentage-based training is better than RPE. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, the person that's following you and reading your stuff wants a result. If that's via RPE or percentage, doesn't matter. It's up to you to convince them what's better or worse for them once you engage with them as a client. Right now, they don't need to be exposed to that. Now, if your target market is coaches and you're trying to mentor coaches, maybe a slightly different story. But even with that, the argumentative route is not going to be as good as the problem-solving route. And so think of the mindset that you take if you're trying to solve a problem versus the mindset that you need to take to win an argument. If you're trying to solve a problem, the problem is the focus. And so the solution then is the outcome. That's what you're looking for. And with that, you're going to be a lot more open-minded. You're going to think more rationally. When you're trying to win an argument, you become laser focused on proving the person or the thing on the other end wrong. That's not a healthy way to present information, especially if we're getting nerdy and now talking about science. Science is be open to anything that can change your mind, basically. And so, like, you come back to the RPE versus percentage sort of argument. If you're trying to win an argument, you're going to post why one thing is right and one thing is wrong. If you're trying to solve a problem, the problem then is what is going to produce the best outcome. And in order to have that conversation, you need to take a principles-based approach. So you're like, here are the pros and cons to RPE, here are the pros and cons to percentages. You realize both methods work, both methods produce a result, and that's going to be really helpful to then pick apart, dissect, post in a tangible way that the person reading on the other end can be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Rather than building a tribe of people who hate one thing or the other. Think of it like this as well. Like, just curtailing on that argument. If you're building tribes, if you're getting tribal in nature, and you want to argue a point, you immediately cut out the potential target market that sits on the other side of the fence. You're not trying to win them over to your religion. You're trying to present information. And so if you've got people who are following you, potentially interested in your coaching, that use RPE in their training and want to continue to, and you're like, RPE is the worst, percentage is the best, I only use percentage, then you cut out that part of the market. They immediately stop listening to you. They immediately discredit your knowledge as a coach because your beliefs don't align with them. And so it's not about presenting your beliefs as right or wrong. It's about presenting what the problem is and how you can showcase your ability to use principles to solve those problems. There's so much more to be said on social media. I feel like I can keep rambling on about it. But really what I wanted to present, or really what I wanted to get across in this particular episode, is coming back to, again, what my friend Sam said around, like, don't pray to the algorithm gods. Instead, focus on producing content that is relevant to your target market. And the art of producing good content relevant to your target market is that the person who is in your target market, when they see and read your content, they should feel like you are speaking directly to them, not to an audience, but to them. They should feel seen, they should feel heard, they should feel like you understand them. That is going to make them so much more likely to follow, to engage, and to potentially end up soliciting your services. So I might leave it there. It's been 11 and a half minutes, and I want to keep these things short and sweet. But thank you for coming back along for the ride. You're going to hear more of me now. We're going to release the main episode plus one of these short episodes, hopefully once a week, depending on my schedule. But I really want to hear from you what you're interested in listening to me talking about. Give me feedback about, if you follow to the end of these episodes, what you actually want to hear from me, because I want to cater this to my audience. And along the way, I want to be a little bit more real and open about my experiences in my current position at ZeroW as well. So hopefully I'll share a bit more of that, because I'm notoriously bad at social media in terms of just posting or sharing anything in general. And this is my way of forcing myself to produce content, to snip it up, put Instagram stuff out. So I hope you enjoy it and enjoy coming along for the ride with me. Thank you. Goodbye.